So we've been having trouble with my boat. This is a 4.3 Mercury Mercruiser. This is a 2006 model boat. And the problem we was having, we would drive it, it would start just fine, and you'd run it and it would get hot, and then you would turn it off and then it wouldn't start back. And it would just turn over and turn over, but it never would start. And then once you got it cooled off, then it would start back. And it went on. It's been a couple of seasons ago when it started, and there was a lot more. There was a lot of problems that it was having. So he took it to a reputable boat mechanic, and he went through the outdrive, replaced all the seals, the impeller pump. The shutter assembly was totally melted out, and the shutters were on one side were totally gone. And so he had to change the boot and the shutters. The motor had overheated at some point, and so he replaced the spark plugs and the wires. And that's all I know that he did. We got the boat back, and he also changed the shift cable. So I got a new shift cable put in, and a new neutral safety switch, or neutral interrupt switch, I think is what it's called. So there was quite a bit of work done to the boat, and we get it back, and we run it, and we was out, I don't know, probably 30 or 45 minutes, got the motor pretty warm, turned it off, and it wouldn't start back. So back to square one, trying to figure out what's wrong with it's intermittent, so it's, once the motor cools off, it won't do it. And so this is what we've been doing to fix the boat, and the coil and the distributor is going to be completely rebuilt. So I've got a light on it now, so you can kind of see this is the positive side. I don't know if you can see that there's a little plus symbol there. The other side's negative. And if you raise these up, you can kind of see the mounting bolt right there that mounts this mounting strap to the engine, and then this little bolt right here tightens that strap around the coil. So I'm hoping just to loosen this and just slip it off and slip the new one in, but I don't know if that's going to work or not. But that's kind of how this is mounted up. You got a positive and negative. You've got the top plug running from the distributor, and then you've got two bolts, one that mounts it to the engine, one mounts it to the strap. And before we get into disconnecting any electrical components, we're going to disconnect this negative side of the battery. So you can see the mount there. What I did, I loosened up the screw right here a little bit, and then I had to loosen that up. But once you loosen that bolt there that holds it to the motor, this kind of gives and lets you take it out without totally removing it. It's a little tight to get back there. It's a hard little angle here. But that's what I did, just loosen this bolt on the mount, and then once I loosened this off of the motor, it just let loose. Now for the distributor, I went ahead and removed this and kind of got it out of the way just so I could get back and get a little more access and get to these screws. These screws are tight back there. It's really hard to get to them, but it seems like they're hooked to the cap pretty well. They don't just pull, they don't just fall out. It takes a good bit to pull them out, so that's a plus. So you can just loosen them up and then pull this cap and then just set it to the back. I don't know if I'm going to change that cap or not, but I'll figure that out later. But under this is what I'm pretty sure there's a sensor down in there, and that's what I'm thinking is bad. So taking the top off, got down to the rotor, which this is the new rotor. sits in there like this on this metal shaft. It's got a little keyhole in it where this fits in. You can see the rust, the corrosion on this shaft. It was in these little splines. There's some splines inside of this. It was just rusted on. So that's a bear to get off. You really have to get up underneath this with a large screwdriver and pry it straight up off of that shaft. So this one was stuck on there pretty good. So if you're changing this out, just go ahead and make sure you have this, because you're going to bend it all up and possibly break the top. I broke the top off my old one. So if you're going to take this apart and get down in here, you better have one of these rotors, a new one, to pop back on when you're done. And you can see there's just 2 screws. I done took the one on the left off. That's the sensor right down in there with the 2 screws holding it in. So I'm going to take those screws out and get that sensor out. And to pop that sensor out, you just put your large screwdriver down here at the bottom where the wires come out and just give it a tap, because this thing's was stuck in there on mine too, and that loosens it up. So you can kind of see that little slot where the wires come out. Just tap it from the outside in and let that loosen up. With your new sensor, you've got a red stripe and a green stripe. And on the old sensor, the old ones are the same, a red stripe and a green stripe. And it's pretty easy to unplug that. Now the ground wire goes way back in there to the back. And from here you can see there, that's my, it is hard to get back down in there. It's way down there. So what I'm probably going to do is just splice into the ground wire and see if that works. I think that's going to be my best bet. So I got the old sensor out. I scraped all the gasket off the edge. Sandpapered that metal shaft to get some of that corrosion off. Hit it with a clean rag just to wipe it down, and sucked it out with a shop vac. So it's pretty clean in there. And now I'm going to start putting my new parts back in. So I've got all the sensor wired up. What I ended up doing was taking the ground wire and just splicing it in, and taking my soldering iron and soldering the connection, and then wrapping it up real good with electrical tape. I think that's going to work. If it ever gives me a problem, I'll pretty much know that that's the ground that needs to be redone, and just run a new ground wire. But I think that's going to hold up. The difference between the old, you can see how cruddy looking those contacts are in there in the old distributor cap, and then the new one is brand new. So yeah, it's going to be worth the time to go ahead, since I'm in it, and put a new cap on. I want to show you one thing with the gasket that comes with it. It comes with this little keyhole right there. That lines up with a little keyhole right here in the cap. So you can't put this on wrong if you just pay attention to that little keyhole. That little keyhole in the cap goes right in there. And then just be careful to make sure each plug goes back in the right place. Because if you get them plugs off, your motor's not going to run very well at all. Sounds like the motor's running pretty good, so we'll have to take it out a few days on the water and give it a good run in the hot weather, see if it holds up. All right, we at the river. Fixing to put this thing to its paces. So we put a lot of hours on this boat after the repairs. I think we've ran about 4 full tanks of gas through it. It's near the end of July now, so it's been over a month that we've been running it since we've put the work into it. So we feel very confident that the repairs that we've done has fixed the intermittent start issue. So I'd call it a hot start issue. But you'd run it and it would run fine, cold, and then once the engine got good and hot, it would just cut out. So I don't know if it was the sensor or the coil or the distributor cap, but something in that was getting hot and failing. So it's probably the sensor. But like I said earlier, if you have one of these and you go to change it out, you might as well just have the whole rebuild kit and plan on rebuilding the whole distributor while you're in it. But thanks for watching. I hope this helps someone.